What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. I got a serious question at the end of this one, so y'all stay tuned. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. It's an old statement that for decades people have been studying, and that thing is being a product of your environment, meaning your upbringing, the way you was raised, and the things you see will have an effect on the way you view the world and the way you live your life. For example, if you come from a two-parent, middle-class home where both parents are college educated or have good careers, y'all go on family outings, eat good every night, you have decent school clothes, and can focus on being a kid, you might be a little bit more balanced than another kid that has a parent getting high, one in prison or not around, no one to really take care of them, and when they walk outside their door, they see trappers, scammers, and killers. The mindset of both those kids coming from two very different circumstances will be different. But the stigma of somebody being a bad person just because they come from a bad situation or seen a lot is not always true. It's a lot of good kids that come from the trenches. They try to stay above the influence, fight peer pressure, and do their best to respect where they come from, but not fall victim themselves. But it is an element of peer pressure, survival, and wanting acceptance that comes with both environments. The middle class kid wants to be loved and accepted by their parents and peers. They want to survive and stay above the peer pressure that goes on in their community as well, whether that's smoking, drinking, skipping school. But the kid who comes from the projects might deal with a more dangerous street element, like trying to avoid gangs, jumping on a corner to survive, or doing worse for money. And unfortunately, even as a kid, that old saying is true: pressure busts pipes. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll be taking it all the way back to 2010 to discuss the case of a 14-year-old girl who went to hit a lick and it took a fatal turn when they laughed at her. Back in 2010, Artisha Hope was a 14-year-old girl navigating life in Baltimore City. She lived with her mother in Southwest Baltimore and was a 7th grader at Booker T. Washington Middle School. She got good grades, but wasn't like most girls her age. A bit of a tomboy who liked to play sports and was a little rough around the edges. We all know that at that age, kids can be rebellious. That was the exact case for Artisha. She would often zap out if her mother told her to do something around the house, or tried to discipline her by telling her no cussing, follow the rules, like coming home on time and cleaning up. But her mother quickly realized it wasn't a normal frustration coming from her daughter. It was rage, hate, and anger. And the smallest thing would trigger the young lady, like her nephew spilling something on the floor. She would throw things through the house, break stuff, and it would take a lot for her to calm down. Her mother tried her best to run a strict household and set boundaries for her daughter. She even went to the school to see if she can get her put on some kind of IED program, which stands for Individualized Educational Plan, that helps troubled kids navigate through school. As the young lady kept getting in trouble and sent from school to school. But it wasn't for her academics, as she was very smart. It was for her behavior, in which the school felt that was a deeper problem and there wasn't much they could do. The teen and her mother would bump heads so often to the point she went to talk to a social worker asking could they take her daughter to some kind of placement so she could be evaluated for her mental health. But they told her unless she signed over her rights as a parent or Artisha was arrested for a crime, it wasn't much they could do either about her acting out. As the months went on, things got worse, causing the teen to not want to follow her mother's rules at all, packing her bags and staying with different family members throughout the city. Trying to provide for herself, she would catch a petty theft charge and be arrested. But her mother told the juvenile courts she wanted nothing to do with her daughter anymore because she wouldn't listen and respect her household. Her aunt would step up and the teen would go stay with her in Northeast Baltimore. Her aunt and cousins looked out for her. She had shelter and food, but Artisha wanted to support herself. She would find ways to make a few dollars until eventually the young lady got her hands on a little blick, a revolver. She showed it to her brothers And when they asked her, like, yo, what you doing with that? She stated, I'm about to get to work. On a nice summer night on August 13th, 2010, two Hispanic men were sitting on the steps in front of their row house having a few drinks on North Linwood Avenue in East Baltimore. They were at the time 44-year-old Jose Gonzalez and his 22-year-old homeboy named William. As they observed the neighborhood, they realized a person was walking up on them. They upped the gun, telling the men to kick everything out. Realizing it was a teenage girl that weighed about 130 pounds, the men thought it was a joke and they bust out laughing. Seconds later, multiple shots went off and she fled the scene. BPD was called to the location to find William grazed in the head, but Jose suffering from a gunshot wound straight to the head. He was rushed to a local hospital in critical condition. William gave them a description of the shooter and what he claimed to be a small teenage girl. And when she upped the gun, they thought it was a joke. Back in East Baltimore, Artisha went to her big brother's house. She told him, like, yo, I did it. I shot somebody. He asked her, like, what you talking about? That's when she gave him the whole rundown. Scared his little sister would be arrested, he took the gun and told her they had to get out of the area right now. As police continued their investigation, a week would go by with no activity to Jose's brain, causing his family in the hospital to pull the plug on the man. Now the robbery had turned into a homicide case. Police got word a young man was going around the city showing off a gun, saying it was hot because a body was on it, but he wanted to sell it. When people asked him who got hit with it, he told them about a robbery in East Baltimore. A confidential informant gave police the name of the young man. He was at the time Sean Palmer, Artisha's brother. Police laid on the young man and caught him leaving the house with the gun and a book bag. They knew by now his sister had pulled the trigger, as the streets were already talking. He was charged with a handgun violation and accessory after the fact. And not long after, 14-year-old Artisha was also picked up, charged as an adult with first-degree murder, attempt, robbery, and a few more other charges. When asked why did she shoot, she told police she was mad the men took her for a joke. They laughed in her face, and she wanted it to be known she was serious. As her family found out what happened, they talked to the news. Her mother told them she tried everything for her daughter to stay on track, but she said it was a mental issue, and she stated she was unstable. Her aunt, who she was living with, stated she was a good kid. She was fun-loving, just misunderstood. She stated, yeah, she had issues, but most kids in the city also did, especially when trying to find themselves. She sent her condolences to the victim's family, but felt her niece was a child and didn't deserve to be charged as an adult. As the case made its way to court, her brother copped out to a few years of probation, and the young lady's attorney tried to fight for her case to be dropped to juvenile court. Because of the seriousness of the crime, though, the judge denied it. In the end, Artisha was found guilty, and in 2011, at 15 years old, she was sentenced to 50 years in prison with all suspended but 20. She should now be almost 30 years old, and if not already home, close to being released. Hopefully, she learned from her mistakes and is living a productive life. Rest in peace to Jose. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. This story hit me a little harder because I remember being 15, just like Artisha, running around with a gun in my hand, looking for somebody to run down on. It's almost like you feel like you got to do that or you won't survive. I know some will say, why you just don't get a job? But at that age, it's not that easy. Being that young and especially easily influenced. Fortunately for my situation, nobody lost their life. I was arrested at 17, charged as an adult as well. It's a lot of youth that get caught up in the system early on, falling right into the trap. And even if you come out here like me and don't get in no more trouble, if it's a violent charge, that felony doesn't move. It follows you everywhere. It's like it's hunting you while you trying to get an apartment, good job. That X is always on your back. I'm gonna end this one with a question. Do y'all think if a person commits a crime as a juvenile, they should be a felon forever, even though society tells us at that age our brain is not fully functioning yet? And definitely if you have changed your life. The point is rehabilitation. When should the system be like, okay, clean start, clean record, you can start from here? Should it be after 10 years, after 20 years of being out of trouble? Or do you think it's right not to be able to get your record expunged for something you did as a kid? And now you are a grown man or woman dealing with that. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, man, that was a crazy story. But I ain't gonna speak too much more about this one. Y'all leave it in the comments. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This is another episode of the Baltimore Way. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. It's your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out. What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. In a lot of cases, the bond between a mother and son is a strong one. Even if it's a full family with a father in the house, it's just something about a mother's love and nurturing spirit. But a lot of women raising boys, they understand the world outside is cold and unforgiving, especially for a young black man. So she might take extra steps to make sure her son has the tools and knowledge he needs to go out here, not become a statistic, and make something of himself. And with single mothers, it gets even deeper. They have that independent spirit to work hard, provide for their babies, give them the best life they possibly can, even if their child father doesn't want to participate or help raise them. Of course, there's nothing wrong with giving your kids the best, but sometimes when we are trying to make up for something, feel guilty about past mistakes, we can overdo it, and that often spoils the child. Some kids understand balance. They grow up hearing no all the time. In order to get what they want, they have to earn it, get good grades, and do things around the house. But other kids are not used to hearing no. There's no discipline when they do something wrong, leaving no accountability. Raising the kind of person you can't tell nothing to. It might seem cute as a child, a little spoiled, hard-headed kid, but when your baby becomes an adult with no fear of consequences, their actions could affect you in more ways than you can imagine. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll be taking it all the way back to 2005 to discuss the case of a teen's evil plot to get rid of his mother that backfired after bragging to a friend. Back in 2005, 52-year-old Margot Baker had made a good life for herself. She had a good job at Harbor Hospital. Everybody in her community loved the woman, but she had been living that for the past 20 years, the Park Heights area of the city. Ms. Margot had older kids and had prided herself on being a great mother, even if she had to take extra shifts at the hospital or go without herself. She made sure her kids had their needs and even most of their wants, including her teenage son. At the time, 18-year-old Ross Tep, who she was very close to. They had that strong mother and son bond, and even though considered a grown man, a lot of people told her, "You spoil that boy and baby him." Ross knew he could get whatever he wanted from his mother, even when he started bucking the system. And even though he didn't have to, he would hit the block and try to get a few dollars with the trappers around his way, leading to him getting jammed up. And which, of course, every time his mother was right there to bail him out, even giving him money out her own pocket so he wouldn't feel obligated to play in the streets. As Ms. Margot believed in hard work and getting things the old-fashioned way, and that was through an honest job. She would purchase a new car, a SUV, so she can get back and forth to work and maneuver through the city without catching an MTA. She loved her truck and was excited, but of course, when Ross asked his mother could he borrow her car, she just couldn't say no. On April 27th, 2005, Ross spent a few blocks with his mother's truck. He brought it home and gave her the keys. Being a typical parent, she walked outside to make sure the vehicle was in one piece when she noticed a big scratch on one of her rims. Tired of Ross being reckless, she addressed the situation, asking the young man about the scratch and where did it come from. He denied being the one who scratched the rim, and his mother continued to fuss him out. Fast forward a few days later, co-workers and family became concerned when they didn't hear from Margot at all, or she didn't show up for her shift, which definitely wasn't in her character. Ross even seemed concerned, calling family, telling them his mother hasn't been home in days, in which everyone encouraged the young man to file a missing persons report. He went to the local police station and told them his mother was missing. When they asked when was the last time he saw her, the young man stated, "I borrowed her car on April 27th. He told police when he brought her home that night, she talked to him, he went to his room to change clothes, and then she told him she would be back. She was leaving with a friend, but he didn't know their name. Since only Ross and Margot lived in the house, police didn't expect any foul play at first. They took the report serious and deemed the woman missing. Family and friends would all come together, print out flyers with Margot's picture on it, and pass them around the neighborhood. They handed them out to neighbors and other people walking through. Ross seemed upset and worried about his mother as he talked to multiple neighbors and begged for answers. As weeks went on, there was still no trace of Miss Margot. It's like she had disappeared and didn't want to be found, until police got a lead. One of Ross' friends came to the station with his mother and claimed Ross had been making some crazy statements, telling them and bragging about killing his mother, saying he got tired of her fussing him out over the car, so he stabbed her multiple times, even laughing, saying police and his family fell for him, crying and acting hurt, but telling his friend he was happy she was gone. With that new information, police went to pick Ross up for an interview. Using time as a tactic, they questioned the young man all night, for hours and hours, to the point he broke, telling them he just wanted to go home. He stated, "If I tell y'all what happened and where the body is buried at, can I go?" Police agreed, and Ross took the bait. He told them he made a mistake in April and scratched up the rims on his mother's car. He stated when he came in the house, she was mad. He stated his mother started fussing him out, and he got tired of it. So he grabbed a steak knife from the kitchen, blacked out, and sliced his mother multiple times. Once he realized she wasn't moving, he wrapped her up in plastic and drove her to the infamous park in the city, Lincoln Park, and dumped her body. Sticking to the agreement, Ross took police to the exact location where they found Miss Margot had been dumped off into a deep ditch and had more than 40 stab wounds all over her head and body. Of course, with that confession, Ross wouldn't go home, but be taken into custody, charged with the slaying of his mother. Family and friends couldn't believe it, that the young man would do something like that, especially to the only person that looked out for him. As the case made its way to court the following year, the family was torn, as Ross looked back at his peoples, cried, and apologized for his actions, claiming he missed his mother every day and regretted what he had did. Some family even asked the judge could they be lenient on the young man, and Ross' attorney asked could the young man be sent to a youth program rehabilitation center, but the judge felt Ross was cold and calculated, bragging about what he did to his mother and lying to family, even helping everybody look for her, passing out flyers, knowing she was gone. In the end, at 19 years old, Ross pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 33 years in prison. Rest in peace to Miss Margot. I send my prayers and condolences to her family. This story is a prime example how you can bust your tail, give your kids everything they need and want, and they still can turn on you. For some people, fortunately it doesn't go this far because they learn early on. It might hurt, but sometimes you gotta cut the cord when your kids become grown and expect to still be treated like babies. But some parents never let go. That's why you see men and women 30, 35 years old who mother and father still helps them with their bills, getting them cars when they need one, feeling like and thinking in their mind that they are helping their kid get ahead. But are you really? Because as soon as you say no or cut them off, here comes the resentment. But I want to leave this one open for discussion. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the situation. And with raising your own kids, if you have them, do you try to get them everything they want? Make sure they never go without? Or do you feel like spoiling a child can backfire? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, man, crazy story. Rest in peace, Miss Margot. I definitely send my prayers and condolences to her family. But I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. Oh yeah, before I get out of here, y'all be sure to go follow me on Instagram at _Tony 2 times. I'm gonna be posting more over there, sharing videos, sharing stories. So if you want to connect, send something y'all might want us to touch on or promote your brand, be sure to hit me over there. But that's it for this episode of the Baltimore Way. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. It's your boy Tony 2 times. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. I'm out.
It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another episode of the Baltimore Way. In this video, I'll be discussing a June 2023 shootout that left 46-year-old Kimberly Benjamin caught in the fatal crossfire. But before we get into this video, I'd like to say thank you to all of our supporters. We appreciate you and hope you stick around. If you'd like to support the channel monetarily, you can find the information on the screen. And to support us for absolutely no cost, please hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and join the Tony 2 times family. Tap that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And of course, feel free to share this video with everyone you know. Also, if you'd like to see more episodes of the Baltimore Way, please click the link to the playlist in the description box after this video to get caught up. All right, let's get into it. Kimberly Benjamin, a beloved mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Kimberly is described as a fun, kind, loving, and family-oriented person. Her beauty radiates from the inside out. Her fashion was also daring and on point. Kimberly loved having a good time and doing whatever she can for the people around her. Kimberly's the type of person who would bring pastries into work in an effort to brighten her coworkers' day. Kimberly was someone you would want to have in your corner. At some point, Kimberly started dating a man named Jamal Piles. Jamal is a Baltimore rapper with his own record label. Kimberly and Jamal would eventually take their romance to the next step. However, things would soon take a tragic turn. On Tuesday, June 6, 2023, around 6:30 p.m., Kimberly accompanied Jamal to what was supposed to be a business meeting to discuss his music career. The couple pulled up to the 1300 block of Booth Street near Franklin Square neighborhood in central southwest Baltimore. 46-year-old Kimberly sat in the passenger seat while 35-year-old Jamal was in the driver's seat. BPD was also on patrol in the area at the time. Moments later, gunfire filled the air. BPD witnesses the shooting. They found a 21-year-old man wounded in his legs in the unit block of North Carey Street. They also found Kimberly Benjamin suffering from a wound to her head at the intersection of McHenry Street and South Carey Street. Kimberly and the 21-year-old, later identified as Jason Johnson, were both taken to the hospital. Jason was hit 3 times in his leg and was ultimately treated for his injuries and released. As for Kimberly, doctors did everything they could to save her life, but despite life-saving measures, hospital staff pronounced Kimberly gone on June 7, 2023. Kimberly's family and friends were devastated by the news. She was just an innocent bystander. She had nothing to do with the incident. Kimberly's loss was a major void that could never be filled. Her loved ones could only hope that she would get justice. Police had arrested a person of interest at the same intersection where Kimberly was found. That person was later identified as Kimberly's husband, Jamal Piles. After being released from the hospital, 21-year-old Jason Johnson was also arrested in connection with the shooting and Kimberly's slaying. Investigators were able to determine that a shootout between Jamal and Jason had taken place on the evening of June 6, and sadly, Kimberly was caught in the fatal crossfire. Both Jamal and Jason said they were firing at each other in self-defense and pointed the finger at each other as the aggressors in the tragic incident. Jamal was initially facing 11 charges, including attempted first and second degree hit, first and second degree assault, firearm and handgun violations, and 2 counts of reckless endangerment. Jason Johnson, on the other hand, was charged with first-degree hit, attempted first-degree hit, firearm violations, and reckless endangerment. Before going to trial in February 2024, Jamal rejected a 45-year plea deal in October 2023. Jamal's trial began on February 23, 2024. Prosecutors began by telling jurors that within a span of 3 minutes, Jamal made choices on June 6 that landed him in the position he was in. They also said he made several moves after the incident to cover up his involvement, such as allegedly removing his clothing and throwing the weapon used during the shootout in a drain. Events before, during, and after the incident were all caught on surveillance video. Jamal's defense countered those claims by telling the jury that Jamal and Kimberly were having the perfect day up until the incident that led to his arrest. According to Jamal's defense, Kimberly accompanied him to a business meeting that was supposed to take place on the 1700 block of McHenry Street when their car was suddenly blocked in by another car. The defense went on to say that Jamal had no time to think before he and his wife were fired at 4 times by the other driver, and his reaction was to return fire in order to protect himself and Kimberly. Sadly, that's when Kimberly was fatally injured by a through-and-through wound to her head. The defense also said Jamal had no time to grieve his wife before immediately being placed in handcuffs. Jamal's trial lasted 5 days. During closing arguments, prosecutors maintained their position that Jamal's actions put his wife in danger, which resulted in her slaying, and then tried to cover his tracks by going 10 blocks to toss the weapon in a storm drain and then call for help. In the defense's closing arguments, they said Jamal was set up. Once he arrived at the scene to negotiate being featured on a song, a shooter started firing, and that's when he took a defensive position. They claimed BPD investigated the case poorly and made assumptions in order to close the case. The defense continued to claim that Jamal was just trying to protect his wife. The prosecution rebuttals and asks the jury, why did Jamal put his wife in harm's way if he loves her? In response to the self-defense claim, they said the other shooter had his head down and Jamal fired first. The prosecutor went on to say that when police arrived, Jamal went into a store to wash his hands and grab a bottle of water, rather than being with his wife, Kimberly. Later that day, the jury reached a verdict. Jamal Piles was found guilty of second-degree assault and firearm and handgun charges. He was acquitted of the attempted hit charges and reckless endangerment. In June 2024, he was sentenced to 2 10-year sentences to be served concurrently, with the first 5 years without the possibility of parole. The person accused of taking Kimberly's life, Jason Johnson, went to trial on August 19, 2024. At Jason's trial, prosecutors described the incident as a mutual shooting that took place in the middle of the street. The incident began with a confrontation between Jason and Jamal, and weapons were fired by both men. Jason's defense attorney also claimed self-defense, while at the same time casting doubt on whether he had a weapon at all. The prosecution detailed the surveillance footage, which barely showed Jason running into a small alley where they say he retrieved a weapon and ran back to Jamal as their altercation began. The defense pointed out that the footage did not clearly show Jason with a weapon. The defense also pointed out that ballistics reported up to 4 weapons could have been involved. 13 of the casings found at the scene were traced back to the weapon Jamal used. The projectiles found in the car where Kimberly lost her life, however, did not belong to Jamal. Surveillance footage also showed Jamal had bumped Jason with his car prior to the incident, which the defense used to show that Jason was not the aggressor, but Jamal was. They also pointed out that Jason was hit 3 times in the leg, while Jamal was uninjured. Jason's trial ended on August 23rd. The jury found 23-year-old Jason Johnson guilty of voluntary manslaughter, attempted voluntary manslaughter, firearm violations, reckless endangerment, and affray or public fighting. He is scheduled to be sentenced in November 2024. May Kimberly Benjamin continue to rest in peace. My deepest condolences to her family and friends. Kimberly was so loved and adored by many. As I said earlier, her passing has left a void in many people's lives. Kimberly was truly one of a kind. It's so sad how she lost her life. She was an innocent bystander just riding with her husband to do business as she thought, not knowing that it would have led to her losing her life. She probably trusted his judgment, trusted him not to put her in harm's way. It's just also unfortunate and heartbreaking. Before her husband Jamal's sentencing, Kimberly's sister and her son spoke emotionally. They blamed Jamal for putting her in a situation that ended her life. Her son said Jamal was a coward and was only concerned for himself during the incident, not Kimberly's safety. So terribly sad. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this tragic story in the comments below. Again, may Kimberly rest in peace. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of the Baltimore Way. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times. Until next time.
What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 Times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. There's a lot of twists and turns in this, so keep up with me. For the day one, fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. Let's get right into the story. Sweet 16. That age is a very exciting time for a young teenager. It's when you are becoming a young adult. You get that rite of passage. At that point, high school is almost over with. You might get your driver's license, and your parents might even loosen their grip and let you have more fun and more freedom. For the teen, being that young, you are bright-eyed, optimistic about life. And to you, the world can do no wrong. You want to be able to explore, find where you belong in society, and socialize. Most of the time for parents, you really see your parenting skills and how you raise them come to play at that point. We sit back and smile to ourselves, especially if your child is making right decisions and running with the game you put down on them to pick up for years. But one thing we could never prepare them for is how cold and cruddy the world really can be. The evil in people, the flaws in society, and how they should see individuals. Still green and fresh in life, most teenagers take things at face value, meaning if a person smiles, talks to them on their level, in their mind, this individual is cool. Not really knowing it's people out here that play on their innocence. Close friends and family. Most of us adults wouldn't think twice if our teen came to us and said, I'm going with such and such, or to this person's house, because we might have known them for years. They watched our baby grow up and we trust them. But at a certain age, you have to be careful who you leave your teen around, because some people's intentions are not good and can really be evil. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we'll be taking it all the way back to 2010 to discuss the story of 16-year-old Felicia Barnes, a young woman who visited family in Baltimore but never made it back home. Back in 2010, 16-year-old Felicia Barnes was an outgoing, fun-loving, ambitious, and smart young lady. Growing up in North Carolina, gifted from a young age, she skipped from 3rd grade to 4th grade and got straight A's in school. Now 16, she had plans on finishing high school early with honors. When she wasn't focused on theater, running track, or school, in her free time, she was a normal teen girl who enjoyed hanging with friends, talking on the phone, going shopping, and to the movies. With the future looking bright, she decided she wanted to go to college and study psychology and early childhood education. With her grades, she had the pick of the litter when it came to schools, but she decided on Towson University in Baltimore. It made sense because she had family in the city, including her older sister, and she was very familiar with the area, visiting all the time. In December of 2010, the young lady was making plans on visiting her sister Dana for Christmas, who lived in the city. The two were very close. Dana being older with her own place, Felicia figured when she came up for school, they could live together and get a bigger place. Once Felicia came to visit, the two were excited to be back in each other's presence. They talked all night and made plans for the future. At the time, Dana had been in a long-term relationship for over 10 years, with at the time a 26-year-old man named Michael Johnson. Michael was close to the family. Him and Dana were exclusive to the point he called Felicia his little sister. They would all hang out while she was in town. She would even hang with his younger brother, who was more close to age with her. Dana had her own place in Ricerstown Square apartments in Northwest Baltimore. All four, her, Felicia, Michael, and his little brother, would hang out there all day and night. Dana and Michael, being the older, cool siblings, will often let their younger brother and sister break some rules. Might even slide them a drink or two. It seemed like all love, but things got weird. When being young, teens having fun, Felicia and Michael's little brother would start kicking it on a personal level, in which somehow Michael saw a video that made him start looking at the young lady differently. Still calling her his little sister, but his vibe was thrown off. He would often call and text her even when Dana wasn't around, to the point her older sister became uncomfortable and started to wonder that her boyfriend had feelings for her little sister. On December 28th, 3 days after Christmas, Dana had went to work. Her and Michael talked earlier that day. He stated he went to the apartment, and in his words, he let her know little sister's up and active, speaking in reference to Felicia. Later that day, Dana came home, and Felicia wasn't nowhere to be found. Even though familiar with Baltimore, she wasn't the type to wander off without letting nobody know where she was going. As it got late into the night, the family got worried. Felicia wasn't a runaway. She had no encounters with police and had no reason to. The last person that had seen her was Michael, and he told them she was at the apartment when he left. He came there with a tote to move some of his clothes out. Days would turn into weeks, to the point the family felt something just wasn't right about Michael, and that the man had to know something, but he maintained he didn't know what happened to the young lady. Him and Dana were split up after Felicia went missing, and BPD got involved in the case. Reward money was being offered, people in the community were searching, and her phone and social media went dry on December 28th. In April 2011, 4 months after Felicia went missing, some workers who were at a job site at the Susquehanna River noticed something floating. As they got closer, it was a plastic bin. They opened it and their hearts dropped. They called local police, who responded and determined it was a person gone. It was later determined to unfortunately be Felicia. The cause of the young lady's slaying being asphyxiation. Michael did something even more suspicious after that, contacting the family, stating if my DNA is found under her fingernails, it's because earlier that same day she went missing. We was play fighting and joking around. The young lady's family were devastated as they were holding out with hope, but now they had answers. She wasn't missing, her life was taken. Most told the police they needed to talk to Michael. When questioned about his relationship with Felicia, he stated, "That was my girlfriend's sister, so she was my little sister as well." They started telling him they had evidence, including the fact he had started acting real strange before she disappeared, coming over while Dina was at work, texting and calling Felicia over 1,200 times, and being seen by a neighbor carrying a plastic bin that looked like he was struggling the day she disappeared. But he maintained his innocence. But the family and community wanted justice and felt otherwise. After a few weeks, neighbors came forward, stating they saw Michael that day. With that, the text, DNA, it led to him being picked up and taken into custody, charged with the slaying of Felicia. Michael maintained he wasn't responsible though, and didn't know what happened. As evidence was being presented, prosecutors claimed he had become obsessed with the young woman, who he called his little sister. And that day in December, he called out of work, went to the apartment while Dina wasn't there, did things to Felicia, and then disposed of her. As months went on, the case started making its way to trial, and Felicia's family showed up, even her sister Dina. She took the stand to speak on her relationship with Michael and his relationship with Felicia. The first trial ended with Michael being found guilty on all charges, but at this point, this was just the beginning. Him and his lawyer appealed, and in 2013, the guilty verdict was overturned due to the judge feeling like all evidence was circumstantial and prosecutors really never proved their case. A new trial would take place, and it ended with a hung jury after his lawyer argued a lot of the facts, including the reasons he missed work. As his employee stated, he always called out at least 3 or 4 times a month just because he was lazy. So it seemed like all the evidence against the man was crumbling and the case would be thrown out. Now Michael was a free man. People couldn't believe it. An attempt to retry him in 2015 led to the case just being dismissed. Holes was also poked in Dina's testimony, as Michael's lawyers targeted on her and the fact she was giving her little sister drinks and let her do certain things. She stated she was going through a lot and she wasn't in the right headspace. That's why her testimony was all over the place. Felicia's family was hurt and felt that the justice system got it all wrong. The case went nationwide and Felicia's name reached around the world. But years would go by and the case would never be reopened. Fast forward almost 15 years later, in June 2023, an 18-year-old woman in Rosedale, Maryland, called Baltimore County Police to report her boyfriend had just put hands on her and also did things to her against her will. He wouldn't let her leave the house. They responded to the location to find now 40-year-old Michael in a bathroom sleep. Both him and his girlfriend was taken to the police station for questioning. And what she told police, the man was her sugar daddy. And he got jealous when he overheard her talking to her sister on the phone about another man. He attacked her, did things to her, put his hands around her neck, and wasn't trying to let her leave. Her tongue was swollen to the point she couldn't even talk, so she typed everything out on her phone. A few years before that, she was reported missing from foster care, and what she stated at that time, she moved in with Michael in York, PA, where the man was staying, and started a relationship. She also stated she fought back during the attack, and that's why she was still alive. In the other room, Michael claimed it was the other way around. He claimed they were just smoking and eating mushrooms, and she snapped after hearing him talk to another woman on the phone and attacked him. Michael was already on probation for pushing the same young lady out of a car in York, PA earlier that year where they lived at. The young lady's claims seemed valid, and Michael was taken into custody at Baltimore County Detention Center and held without bail. Family of Felicia couldn't believe when they got the news on how similar the claims was of the young lady from what really happened to Felicia. They felt like the system had failed, and this proved this was his MO, to control younger women, and the case should be reopened. But as of now, the case hasn't made its way to trial yet. Michael is still in custody and innocent until proven otherwise. Rest in peace to Felicia. At 16 years old, she trusted people like we talked about earlier and saw the good in everybody, even Michael. Some still feel like he is innocent, and others feel like the new case is too similar and proof that he did that to Felicia back then. But I'm going to leave this one open for discussion. I want to know what y'all think about the situation. Leave it in the comments, fam. Yeah, man, crazy. Rest in peace to Felicia. I remember this first happened. It was a whole big thing. Nobody knew what happened to her. The case old now, almost 15 years old. But yeah, y'all definitely let me know what y'all think. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This is another episode of the Baltimore Way. It's your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam. I'm out.